Would you like a couple of simple, fun, direct memory palace exercises that help you with the visualization aspect of using memory techniques? If so, in this video, I got some for you. And I think that they're going to really help you understand the visualization aspect, because that's often not as well understood as it could be, because a lot of people think that they have to see images in their minds in order to use memory techniques. And in my experience, that's simply not true. This is Dr. Anthony Metivier from magneticmemorymethod.com. If you're new here, go ahead and get subscribed if, and only if, you love memory techniques and memory training. And thank you to those of you who are already subscribed for your patience in the calls for subscriptions and all that sort of stuff. It's the only way that we grow. In any case, hit that thumbs up and let's go with the first exercise that I've got for you. Now, I want you to close your eyes if that's useful for you, provided that you're in a place that is safe to do so, and bring to mind the letter A. Whatever way is right for you. If you want specific direction, make it a capital A, and then make it a color. Make it black, let's say. Make it black on a black field, but not the same black. Wouldn't that be interesting? Two different kinds of black. And if you find that the letter A is coming to you in some way that is different than what I'm saying, go with that as well, but develop a kind of meta structure around it. And what I mean by that is, you literally think, okay, he's saying to imagine it this way, but this is the way that it is appearing to me. And describe it. Use your best possible linguistic description and share in the comment what's happening to you. And I would love to read your comments about the different experiences you have as you go through these exercises. So we got an A. It's a black capital A on a black background. You can't see it. Or better said, because you can't see it, you see it. Now, I know that sounds a little bit strange, but go with this idea that because you cannot see it, you see it. It's a black A on a black background. Now, when you're ready, I want you to now start to change its color. Don't worry if you can't actually see it change in color. If you can't see it change in color, just ask yourself, what would it be like if I could see it change in color as this black A on a black background starts to change colors? Now, what color does it change to? You tell me. Leave a comment. What color did it change to? If you want to follow a wheel of colors, a rotation of colors, you could just use Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, is it? Roy G. Biv, yes. Blue, indigo, and violet. So this is where we start with red. Isn't it wonderful how memory techniques work? I skipped there a little bit. What was that? Oh, it's G and it's green. This is how memory techniques work. If you just apply yourself to them, you might have blips like I do. Certainly not the best memory athlete in the world, but it works. It works. It works because you focus on it and because you use it. Now, as you turn this A into red, allow yourself to start seeing the outlines of the letter. What are those outlines? Where would you start if it was going to be a memory palace? Would you start down by the left leg of the letter A and then work yourself up to the pinnacle? Or would you start at the pinnacle and work your way down? Just imagine this as a memory palace, literally a place that has three possible stations. This leg, the top of the A, or the other leg. Where would you start? What would feel the most natural to you in order to make a journey that you could progress from a beginning to an end? Now, if you start at the pinnacle, you're going to only have one station to go unless you use the ground to go over there. And you could make a perfect triangle journey, right? Or if you start at, say, the left leg, then you can go up and make a perfect triangle journey in either direction. And you can think about that and just start to do it. Pick a spot and start to move your mind so that you're focused on one part of this triangle. Now, of course, you've got that line in the middle of the A as well. How can you incorporate that? Can you incorporate that to create a smooth journey that is either circuitous, that repeats itself, or somehow comes to an end? Try both ways. And as you go through this, change the color each trip. So you make one trip in your mind along the letter A, and then you change its color. And you can follow the color using Roy G. Biv, or you can create some other pattern, or just go intuitively. Now it's blue, now it's yellow, whatever, out of order. It's up to you. Either way will create benefits, but what are we doing and why are we doing it? Well, one of the things that we're trying to do is think about spatial organization and navigation, and not only think about it, but actually experience it. Experience it not only in our minds, but in something that we haven't really imagined, but we're using our imagination to bring into focus and into being, because none amongst us created the letter A. And yet at the same time, we create the letter A every time we think about it, right? We are participating in the creation of it. Let's say we're collaborators on the maintenance of the concept of the letter A. So you are creating this journey in your mind, but based on something that's human, that is in many languages use this symbol, and you're going to use it as well. So navigate it and think deeply about how you can navigate it as a memory palace. So how many stations can you get out of the letter A? Think about that and then actually start to use it. That's the next step of the exercise. So I'm not going to tell you how many stations you can have on the letter A. That's up for you to decide. And I'd love to know. Leave a comment with how many you got out of it. But don't just design it as a memory palace. Use it. Memorize something. And think about what you could memorize on this letter A. What will actually fit there? And how much information will fit there? And then actually memorize it. So just as a simple example, let's take 6 digits. Now, there's 2 digits that can go here, and 2 digits at the pinnacle, and 2 digits over on the other leg. That's one way to do it. So if the first 2 digits were 00, I'm going to have Thomas Zaz, or maybe I'll use Dr. Zeus. Those are my images for 00. If the image at the pinnacle is 76, well then I'll have Johnny Cash with a big old stack of cash in his hands. And if the image at the bottom right side of the A is going to be, I don't know, 86, then I'll have a fish, but a specific fish, the Cammytown fish, who was the mascot of the town where I spent a great deal of my youth. So that's an example of how you could use it, but you don't have to use it for numbers. You could use it for names, or you could try and put some foreign language vocabulary there, whatever it is that you feel called to do with this exercise. So to review the exercise, I want you to have a black field and then bring a black letter, capital A, onto the field that you see because you cannot see it, and then gradually change its color. And as you're moving from station to station, change its color again. Or after you complete each journey, change its color. You can rotate it and mix it in different ways as you please. And this will give you a lot of cognitive switching, and it will also give you greater spatial awareness, and this will give you a memory palace. And you can use many times. If someone gives you a name of a book or an author and you want to remember it, you can think of your letter A and just stick it on the pinnacle. This is obviously a very limited use of a memory palace, but it's going to help you get into ideas. And of course, your letter A, because you're well practiced at seeing it against a black background, well, you can impose it on any background, and you can now have an element that you use in any memory palace to give you as many stations as you have practiced using on a letter A that works for you. And that can be a very big letter A on a wall, or it can be a very small letter A, or it can be 52 letter A's, if you please, that are strung out, that have as many stations as you've placed on it in a memory palace. Isn't that wonderful? Well, it gets even better because you got another 25 letters to work with. So if you want to continue the exercise and develop more memory palaces for yourself and to visualize in an unusual way, start on a black background with the letter B, and then once that you've established that it's there and you are literally seeing it because you cannot see it, then you can start to change its color and think about how many stations you can have on your letter B. Then move to C, D, and so on. So that's today's first visual memory palace exercise. Let me know in the comments how much of the alphabet that you practiced with, how many stations you got out of different letters like X, that's an interesting one, and what you memorized using this kind of mini memory palace. Now, the next exercise that I have for you is, well, you're going to need 2 memory palaces at least to do it, but ideally you have a lot more than 2 memory palaces so you can do it several times. And the idea is that you're going to overlap 2 memory palaces at the same time in your mind. So let's say that we have this room as a memory palace. I'm going to close my eyes, bring it to mind, and then I'm going to take another memory palace, like perhaps the previous magnetic memory method headquarters, and I'm going to bring them to my mind at the same time so that they're overlayered on top of each other. And this is kind of interesting to do. It's a very strange effect, but you're going to do it and you're going to see if you can do it. And then you're going to switch between them. So you're going to try to have 3 versions, basically. This version, the one in the other place, and then both of them fused together as if they're existing at the same time. So boom, 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 like that. And that's just one room in the memory palace. You can continue this by going through a memory palace on a room-by-room basis, as you also go through another memory palace on a room-by-room basis with this boom, 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 boom. You can even put on a metronome, boom, 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 boom. So room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, room 5, room 6, like that, and go through them, switching between 2 memory palaces and then having them fused at the same time. Wow, so much fun, and also really, really good for strengthening your visualization of the memory palaces and making sure that you're able to actually move a lot faster through them because you've practiced. Now, of course, you don't have to set your metronome that fast. You can go like a lot slower, and this will be maybe a starting point for many people. And you just work with it, work with different speeds. You don't have to use a metronome either, but it's highly recommended to give it a try and try different speeds. See if you can do it. It's going to be a challenge, and what a very good challenge indeed. And again, it will help you with memory palace navigation, period, and it'll make just normal, quote-unquote normal memory palace navigation so much easier and smoother as a result. Now, the next obvious way to do this is to then have different things in those memory palaces that you're recalling. So in this particular memory palace, for example, I can have some of the Sanskrit that's in this memory palace and then switch to the Sanskrit that's in the other memory palace. The thing that I can't quite do is say 2 different lines of Sanskrit at the same time. However, there is a way to imagine them both playing out at the same time. So what might that look like? Well, in my experience with this exercise so far, it has to be very, very simple. So I have to have very, very simple Sanskrit in the one memory palace and more complicated Sanskrit in the other memory palace. So you might be doing things that are not Sanskrit and maybe have an easier time than this. I haven't tried it with anything else other than Sanskrit, but just to give you an example, in the song Celestial, which comes from Bhagavad Gita, it's idam shariram kaunteya kshetram iti pidite, that sort of thing. So I'll go very, very slow. Idam shariram, right, like that. And then in another memory palace, I'm firing off Karturagniya prapyute phalam karma kimparam karma tajidam. Now, I can't actually do both in my mouth. I wish I could. That'd be pretty cool. But in my mind, I can actually fire them off at the same time. So that in the back of Karturagniya is idam shariram. It's just wild. But it's not verbalized. It's not verbalizable if we can make up a word. But it is something that you can do in your mind. And I do find that one thing needs to be slower than the other, but it is doable. Now, the way that I started to do this so that it was even more doable was to not do 2 lines of Sanskrit from 2 different pieces at the same time, but rather to do Kirtan Kriya, it's called. So Kirtan Kriya is Satanama. So as Satanama is going as a kind of refrain, Satanama, Satanama. In my mind, I'm holding that as I'm also thinking Karturagniya, Prapyute Phalam, Karma Kimparam, Karma Tajidam, Kritina Mahodadopa, and so on, right? And trying to actually keep the Satanama going. It's quite a challenge unto itself, but you get better at it and you're able to do it. So in your case, you might try to think of a German word and then that word in French, or an English word and that word in Mandarin at the same time. And so you would have it in one memory palace, your English word, and your Mandarin word in another memory palace, and you're bringing them together. This is really, really interesting to play around with. The only limit is that you can't speak it out through your mouth. However, what you can do is speak one word through your mouth and write out a different word than the word that you're speaking. And that's really interesting as well. So if you want to get started with that sort of thing, I have a blog post on magneticmemory-method.com about Harry Kinay's multiple mentality course. You might want to get into some of that sort of stuff, where he talks about saying one thing, writing another thing, as you're writing yet another thing backwards with the other hand. It's really wild, and I think you'll love playing around with those things as well. But for now, to just reiterate this exercise, it starts with trying to bring together two memory palaces at the same time. Forget about the content in them. Well, don't forget about the content in them, but you know what I mean. Have memory palace A superimposed over memory palace B, and then switch between them. Switch between them with a metronome if you like. Then have the content and try to run two kinds of content at the same time in your mind. And it's very difficult to get it through your mouth. I haven't found a way anyway, but perhaps with some circular breathing practice, and I don't know, maybe it's possible. But I can do it mentally. And then you can practice saying one thing while writing another from a memory palace if you want to try to have output in that way as a practice. Very, very rewarding. Don't worry if you fail at these things. There's going to be lots of failure in any kind of worthy exercise. Just don't think about it as failure. Think about it as data. When you produce data, you can study the data. And when you can study data, you can see how you might improve it. And of course, you can try to manage all of that data mentally, but then you have to memorize it. So if you keep notes of your journey in a simple memory journal, then you're going to be able to look back and see where you were, and more ideas will come because you have this recursive loop between what you did, how you did it, what you said about what you did, and then what you think about what you said that you did, which then produces new avenues for exploration as you go. Also, 1, 2, 3 auf die Plätze, fertig, los mit Nummer 3. So the third exercise, we're going to do something really fun. We're going to think about our favorite band, and we're going to have our favorite band in a memory palace, and our favorite band is going to be in every room in the memory palace. And while you're in there trying to memorize some stuff, your band is going to be in there playing your favorite song. So let's just take one band that's quite popular. Let's say it's Metallica playing Enter Sandman. And you're going to have them in that room, in that memory palace, right here. All that sort of stuff. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. And you're going to hold that in your mind, imagining them there while you're memorizing something new. So let's just take something that we have to memorize. But my camera here says Olympus. So I'm going to have Mount Olympus while Metallica is playing in the memory palace. And I have to memorize this while they're making all this noise and I'm watching them. And they're actually moving and playing in the room while I'm building Mount Olympus in this room. Now I go to the next room. Now Metallica's there again. They can be playing the same song, they can be playing a different song, whatever the case may be, but they're there, and now you're doing the next thing. So here we have digital. So we're going to put something that reminds us of digital, maybe something from the video game Dig Dug with Tal is a bass player I know who is in there now playing with Metallica to remember the digital word. And now we go to the third place, and more about the camera, yada, yada, yada. Whatever it is that you need to memorize, whether it's tax code or foreign language vocabulary, whatever. Maybe it's the word Sigmal in German, umpteen times. You could have that word there. And so, you have Ziggy Stardust now with the Marlboro Man or something to help you remember that mal sound, Zigmal. And you have Metallica playing in that room. Try and do this. It's really, really interesting and challenging. And it will also just teach you about how wonderful it is to have normal rooms so peaceful and so calm and serene and so not filled with loud music and people flailing their arms around playing drums and with their fingers and sweat pouring out of them and all that sort of stuff. But you want to try doing it with all of this activity. Now, if it's not Metallica, maybe it's Coltrane, anybody that you can think about that you like and enjoy, so that it's not a super annoying exercise, even though it's going to get super annoying pretty quick when you're trying to memorize stuff. But do it. Give it a try. I think you're going to find many, many benefits from just pushing things into these areas. And if you want to take this to the next level of challenge, then actually listen to really, really loud and busy music while you're memorizing something to push through. Now, I wouldn't apply this to memorizing something where it's mission critical, memorizing something for an exam or something like that. Although you could, but just be willing to accept the outcome. But the idea would be that you are doing this for practice. So get a list of random words, put on as loud of heavy metal as you can find, or really aggressive, busy music, like some crazy outer space kind of like jazz, prog rock kind of stuff that's just super intense, and memorize a list of words. And imagine them in the room with you. It's really, really important that you have that visual barrier as well. Even if you don't see images in your mind, what would it be like if there was this visual barrier there, right? And this is going to really, really help make sure that you get the benefit of the exercise, because you're getting the benefit through willfully adopting obstructions to progress. And obstruction to progress, it's kind of like putting on a concrete backpack when you're growing your push-up abilities. You push up with all of this concrete on your back, and then you're just going to get stronger and better at push-ups, and your normal push-ups are going to be a lot easier. So that's the principle there. And listen, if you want some more Memory Palace exercises, I got 16 of them for you. So somewhere on this screen here, there'll be a little button to click that'll take you on over to those Memory Palace exercises, or the link down below in the description. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new here, get subscribed, hit the thumbs up if you haven't already, and go out and exercise the Memory Palace technique, and let me know how these different exercises go. And keep a focus on just what is in your mind. If you don't see things in your mind, don't worry about it. Don't stress it. Always just ask, what is going on in my mind? That simple question started to help me visualize at a much better level. And now it's kind of weird. I mean, I just sit there. Sometimes I'm just laying in bed and there's like a tiger on the Sahara Desert right in front of me. This happened the other night. It's the craziest thing. It was almost like HD TV. And I just thought, what is going on? And it was just wild. It was amazing. It's just wonderful to be able to do this. And it's helped my memory practice a great deal. So I think anybody can get there, and these exercises have been so fundamental, along with some of the other things that we talk about on this channel and in the 16 Memory Palace exercises I recommend you watch next. Thank you as always. Talk to you soon.